Hey, I'm Chris,
Hey, I'm Brandon.
and this is Fill the Box. Thanks for joining us again for episode 3. We had a blast last week with Jonathan Moore, and we're very excited for what we have in store today. We were planning on setting a topic for the day, but we decided that today's guest wouldn't be able to stick to one train of thought, so we're just going to go for it and see what happens. Today's guest, he's a great friend, lieutenant at the fire department, a member of the SISM team. This is Kraymer Harbold.
Yo, what's up? So I'm Kraymer. I'm 31. I recently found that out due to my yearly physical. And my wife putting us in a small group at church. She's texting them like, "Hey, here's our age," and she said 31. Shows me the text. I'm like, "Baby, I'm 30." Yeah, come to find out, I've been living a year behind.
Oh,
I'm married. Been married to my wife for a little over 5 years. She is a saint. She is the backbone to our household. She is the heart that like pumps through my house. She holds it down, but she's mean. Like, she's sweet, but she can be a little mean. I got 2 kids. I personally think they're a little feral. My wife does not. She thinks they're saints. Got a 3-year-old named Kaya Ray, and she looks like her mom, but has the personality of me, and feel bad for the poor girl, especially if she grows a mustache. And I got a 6-month-old. That's Callan Jane, Belaine, Chicken Wang, whatever we want to call her. She doesn't understand her name yet. But yeah, that's about it. Been a fireman a little over 12 years. Worked a few places. I would like to take this time to say that my thoughts and opinions do not reflect that of my employer. Yeah, that's about it.
cool. Well, we're excited to have you today. I'm sure, like I said, I don't think we're going to be able to stick to one topic. So,
No, not at all.
and so this podcast, as you know, we're really focusing on mental health, men's mental health, not just in the fire service, just in general. So everything that comes with that, you know, with your faith, your mental health, your personal well being at home, at work, all that. So one of the things that we were wanting to ask you is in the past you worked for several different departments, and just curious how that has affected you working for multiple departments, the different things you've seen there, and kind of why you've ended up where you're at in your life through that.
Man, it's pretty simple. I'm a big believer. If you're not happy, you're not going to be happy at work. You're not going to be happy at home. All that goes on. Yeah, I've worked a few places. You might get a stigma that you're moving around, but I work at a job where I got to spend a third of my life there. So I want to make sure that third of my life is fun. I'm working with the dudes or the ladies, you know, if there's some that work there. Because I've worked with some women that are freaking badass at their job. So that's the thing I want. But man, I've learned really, like, especially being a new officer, like what I want to do for my crew, what I want to do for me, what I want to do to make my company be the absolute best. And it showed me like, man, I don't want to be like that officer I worked for that, you know, sits at his computer all day, doesn't lift a finger to do chores or any of that, or, you know, doesn't want to get dressed, going to calls and, oh, it's the new, you know, slow man's job. Let him do it. Oh, it's the driver's job to check the truck. No, man, it's my job. And, man, it's really just helped shape me. It's made me some great friends. I mean, that's how I know both of y'all because of where I work now and some of the other places I've worked. I've got some dudes I could call right now, and they're going to give me advice on what I need and what I don't need. They're going to really just put me in a good spot. Say, like, there is a mental aspect to it, though, because, I mean, it's just like when you were in school, you go to a new, you know, going from 5th grade to 6th grade, 6th grade to 7th, you're like, oh, man, I'm going to a new school, man. It's going to be, what's it going to be like? Am I going to get beat up day one? And, you know, somebody going, check out my shoes? Like, what are they going to want? So going in somewhere new, every time you're like, man, am I going to fit in with these guys? Am I going to get a crew? Am I going to get a bunch of slugs?
Yeah.
You know, little things like that. So that's some of the things I've taken from it. And like I said, I've met good dudes. It makes me want to be a good officer, and hopefully I am. But if not, then, hey, let me know what I can do to be better.
Right. And so I think coming from different departments mentally, how does that drive you, right? Do you feel like it puts you on a pedestal? Does it make you feel like you shrunk down, or like, how does it make you feel towards, I guess, do you feel like you owe something to your guys?
Man, I think really like it makes me feel that I'm coming in at a disadvantage because everybody knows firemen talk. Like you could
Right.
be the baddest dude there, but the second you say you're going to leave, oh man, that dude sucks. He oversleeps. He doesn't do a dang thing.
Yeah.
And some people may think that's the truth, some don't. So you come in at a disadvantage. You want to make sure that
Right.
when you're coming in, like that's a big mental thing for me. Like
Mhm.
I don't like taking compliments. That's real weird to me.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard. So like you come in somewhere new, are these guys going to trust me because it's 7:01 when we catch a box? Are they going to be like, well, the guys at the last apartment said he couldn't pull hose, and then
Right.
they're worried about it. So you got to let your
Mhm.
actions speak. You got to be a big dude.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I think something you were talking about at the beginning about as an officer, you want to do what you can for your crew to be the best,
Mhm.
which I think is great. I've always admired those officers that, I mean, everybody knows there's the officers that show up and they just do whatever they want. They don't really care what's going on
Mhm.
during the day. They don't take initiative to help with stuff. They're just kind of there, But I've always admired those officers who take the time to do everything with their crew and ensure that they are doing what they can to make their crew the best. Um, like with Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership, it's
Mhm.
kind of the flip of that, not just taking ownership of your guys' mistakes, but taking ownership of your success because that's your crew, right?
Mhm.
That's everything they do reflects on you. It's something we've talked about. I've talked about this with Curtis and like I tell Dusty, it's my job to make you look good.
Right.
And if I'm doing that, then I'm doing my job, right? And if
Mhm.
I make you look bad, then I've failed somewhere and I did something wrong.
Right.
As an officer, I think it's kind of the same thing, right? You have a responsibility to your guys to not only make sure you're good to go, but make sure they're
Mhm.
good to go as well.
Oh, dude, 100%. Like one thing I'm a big fan of is, once again, this goes from working for different officers, seeing things across, my career. My dudes eat first. My fireman eats first. My
Mhm.
driver eats before me. I eat after my driver. If we got a swing guy in, if anything like that, like I've worked with dudes work on other shifts, other places, and they're like, well, why are you not eating first? You're the lieutenant, or why isn't the chief eating first?
Yeah.
Shouldn't be that way. It's a servant leadership that you got to
Yeah.
hold into it. Like
Mm.
if my dudes aren't fed, then they're not going to perform.
Yeah.
Big believer, like, hey, my dude's tired. He's got a baby at home, so he hadn't slept. Dude, go get some rest. I can unload the dishwasher. I can check med bags. I can check trucks off.
Yeah.
That's what
Right.
you need. Like one of the big things I look at being like that servant leadership style is when we go on a call, like a med call. I
Mhm.
want to be the first person through the door so I can identify a hazard that's going to affect my guys.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm going to be the last one to get back in the rig so I can make sure my dudes are back. Same on fires, stuff like that. Like, hey, let me take that step in, make sure that somebody's falling through the floor and breaking a leg. It's me, not you.
Yeah.
Right.
Wrecks. We all know we run wrecks that are on the interstate. Heck, even our residential roads
Mhm.
suck.
Yeah.
So once we clear off that wreck, hey, my fireman gets in. Whoever's got the traffic get their back. It's my job to stand in front of them, make sure, hey, you're in the rig.
Mhm.
Let them get seat belted, and then I get back in the rig. I work for officers. It's like, oh man, I'm not even getting out of the rig, or oh hey, we're clear. Get in, let their dudes be on the interstate with their back. Next thing you know, they're getting tagged with a mirror.
Yeah.
I don't
Mm.
want that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny you talk about officers and staying in the truck. Um, Not to immediately bring it down, but just recently, the other day was the anniversary of Scott Tanksley's
Oh. Yeah.
um, LEDD from
Mhm.
Dallas. I think the 10-year is 2014, I think.
Yeah.
And something that uh, was brought up with that was kind of crew integrity type of thing. Is those guys kind of walked off to check out what was going on and weren't with the rest of the crew,
Mhm.
right? So there was a little bit of a disconnect there of like, hey, what happened? Maybe if we'd all been, who knows what would have happened? It may not have changed anything, but
Mhm.
that just kind of brings to light in an extreme case the crew integrity and as an officer ensuring all the time that your crew is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but that they're safe and they're taken care of.
Oh, for sure. Like, yeah, you may be on scene. You got to be the one to make the decision. Got to live with it if you do something wrong. But around the house, man, you're just one of the dudes. Like I can clean, crappers just as good as anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
Crappers.
I won't say the bad word.
We got an explicit rating on our podcast.
Okay.
You can say
Yeah.
whatever you want.
poopers.
I don't
Yeah.
think YouTube likes it, but
You know,
whatever.
fuck 'em.
You get over it.
So with being a servant leader, how does that roll over into your household?
Dude, I got to be a dad, man. I got to be a husband. Like, I have to do these things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let me rephrase, I don't have to. I get to. I'm blessed to do those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Being a husband is one of the coolest things in the world. Like, I get to go home, talk to my best friend, maybe get some cookies or something when I get home. Like, my wife's a really good baker. That's why I look like the way I do. I got 2 girls I get to go home to. Like, I know when I get home today, my little girl's going to be getting home from school. She's going to meet me at the front door, probably her hair in a mess, probably her boots on, just, Dad, come running out. Like, hey, cool, but I'm still pulling in the driveway. Just wait a second.
Give me a second, yeah.
But I mean, that's the cool thing. So I got to take that home. And like I said, we got a 6-month-old baby. Like, it sometimes gets frustrating. I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to clean the dishes after dinner, all that kind of stuff. But my wife's also the one that's getting up and feeding the baby at night, especially the night before I go to work. Like I said, she is the backbone to my house. I couldn't be her. I couldn't stay. She's a stay-at-home mom. I couldn't be her.
Yeah.
That job would be terrible for me. Like, I'd
Yeah,
be
I go
outside.
insane. I don't think I'd make it that long.
Yeah.
No.
I'd be outside teaching my kids how to like sharpen sticks or something to figure out their problems.
I barely make it an afternoon.
I was about to say I made it an hour yesterday. So my wife left. She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna feed the baby." She went to go do some extensions or some shit. She was like, "I'm gonna feed the baby. You could just put her down." Dude, soon as she door closes, boom, and I mean hell breaks loose.
Oh yeah.
One baby's crying, the other one's like, "Hey, let's start throwing stuff," and I'm like, "What? How do you do this for 48 hours?"
They
while
know.
I'm gone?
Oh, they know. Mama rules the roost. Daddy just thinks he does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 100%. Like,
Dude.
Oh yeah.
I come home and the kids are like, "Oh, I get to be feral. Dad's home," and Mom just rounds the corner with that, that eye. And
Oh yeah.
okay, we're gonna sit down. We're gonna be quiet. We're gonna listen.
Simmers down real quick,
Yep.
don't they?
Oh,
I just
yeah.
had a video pop up my Tom Hop yesterday of that exact thing of Taylor leaving. It was
Mhm.
like a couple years ago when Sarah was like 2 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And Taylor walks out the door, immediate breakdown, like the world is ending. She's on the floor by the door, screaming and crying. It went on for like 30 minutes. It's like there's nothing I can do. I'm not Mom.
Yeah.
The other thing, like tying back into that servant leadership thing, is, like I said, being a dad. Sorry, I say a lot.
Yeah, that's
Well,
fine.
That's okay. We all do.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing yet.
But like, I want to talk about being a father. And like, I grew up in a family that was my parents were divorced. I got divorced at a young age.
Mhm.
This is no hate on my parents. I had 2 of the best parents in the world, but like my mom, she's a sweetheart. Love to call my mom, talk to her, but she's got a mean right hook. I met that as a kid one day. She's super, like, gets scared super easy. Like, walk up, be like, "Mom, mom, mom," turn around, get caught right in the mouth, and it's like, she's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you, but you knew I get scared easy."
It's your fault.
Yeah, don't worry. And then, my dad's one of the dudes I looked up to my entire life. He was a fireman. He retired in, I guess, 2003. But, he died of cancer. But it was one of those things, like, he was such a cool dude to look up to. Like, he super smart, super knowledgeable, but he wasn't an affectionate guy.
Right.
Like, it's not like every day, "Hey, son, here's a hug." "Hey, good job." He was raised under the mindset of, "Hey, you did what you're supposed to do. Continue on.
Mm-hmm.
Bottle those things up, like, whatever." So now I've got 2 little girls at home that I don't realize, my wife will point it out to me, but it's like, hey, they're 3 and 6. You can't talk to them like they're grown men, telling them like, "Hey, don't cry. Hey, do this,
Yeah.
do that."
Yeah.
They don't get that. So now, like, as a father going into that, that servant leadership style, like, I have to learn that they may not be able to communicate what they want from me. So it's having to learn to, like, serve them. "Hey, let me, I want you to help me do this. Let me help you." My kid will say, "I want a snack." "Well, what do you want?" "I don't know." "Okay, well, what's the snack? Go show
Oh,
me."
that's the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's little things like that. I know it doesn't sound like servant leadership, but being a dad is like, is the epitome, I think, of servant leadership.
Right.
You can keep your patience with a kid. You can keep your patience, usually with a engine full of firemen,
Well, it's
firefighters. Sorry,
Well-
politically correct.
Maybe. I don't know. I've been
Yeah,
with
some
some
of them are pretty
firemen that
bad.
are whoo.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, I mean, having the patience and figuring out as a dad how to address those needs of your child in a way that suits them and their personality, right? Because so I learned. So my wife coaches high school softball and volleyball, right? So she's dealing with high school girls all day, every day. And when she first started doing that, she would come home and be like, "Oh, I had this problem with this kid, and she's doing this and that." And every time I'd be like, "Did you make him run?
Yeah.
Did you yell at him? Did you do this?" And it pretty quickly I caught on that she was like, "That doesn't work with 16-year-old girls.
Right.
Like you got to connect with them and like get all personal and figure them out." And I was like, "That's not how I experienced discipline in high school." So
I did as a kid. Like I'd get in trouble. I know that's hard to believe. But I'd get in trouble like middle of the, my brothers are in there talking. We're all in one room in bunk beds. Mom would be like, "All right, get up, go run." We'd run back and forth from the fence to the barn. And I was a fat kid. I'm still kind of fat. Like my nickname growing up as a kid was Spammy because my mom said I was made of a little bit of fat. So I'd be out there running. My brother's all skinny and lean, all done. And I'm like, sucking wind. Mom's like, "Y'all want to fight anymore?" "No, ma'am."
All done.
Or when that didn't work, there was one day she made us, we had to tie her, had a rag on our wrists and tie them together. And we had to spend the whole day with our brother. And it's like, man, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do this no more.
yeah,
That's gnarly.
Yeah. So now, bringing some of those things that happened to me as a kid, like, I'm like, I don't want, I want to do that to my kids sometimes, but I'm not really going to do that.
Right.
And I appreciate my parents doing that to me because it shows me like, hey, things suck, but it can always be worse.
Could be tied to your brother. Yeah.
Well, and like I thought, I wanted to be a dad like my whole life. Like I was super excited to be a dad. Now that I am a dad, I've had to learn that, especially at the age of 4, you can't discipline them like they're a teenager, right? So like you can't just yell at them and they understand. Oh, like there's discipline coming. If I yell at my daughter, she's just gonna cry, and we don't get anywhere. Like I don't yell at my daughter, but if I say her full name in that tone, it's just it doesn't go anywhere.
Up an octave.
She knows she's in trouble, and she just starts crying.
I'm not I can discipline in my house, but my daughter is way more terrified of my wife than me. The other day, my kid had so much energy. I'm like, "Hey, you know what a burpee is? Let me show you." So I made her start doing burpees. She goes to school the next day, and she's telling her teacher, like, "Yeah, I got in trouble. My dad made me do these things." I'm like, "Don't go to school and say that. You're gonna think I'm like beating you or something." Just making you do some push-ups.
My dad made me do an EMOM at home yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm not a CrossFitter. I don't know what that is. I just know what burpees are, and they suck.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So, man, your brothers.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. I got some characters in my family. I got an older brother. He was a Marine, and now he lives down south. Just kind of like up and one day was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go move to South Texas and working like oil and gas stuff." And said, "Cool, see ya." And I got 2 twin little brothers. They think they're smart. They're really not. They're definitely smarter. One's going to school to be a doctor. He's in med school right now. Yeah.
There it is.
The other one owns a aviation business and a charter business for planes. I'm like, here I am, dude. It was like 59 out of 61 in his graduating class, just thriving and loving.
59 out of 61. Oh.
I don't know if that's true. I was in that 10% somewhere, bottom of 10, but still 10%. They don't give scholarships for that one.
There's only like 6 in that 10%. So
yeah.
So you said your dad didn't show much affection. So growing up with brothers, how did that affect you guys? I mean, I know you said your mom had to tie your hands together, but like, is there something that you can see like, hey, did that make y'all closer as men, or did it like?
I wouldn't say it really swayed one way or the other. I mean, my dad's dad was a Vietnam pilot, awesome dude. He's in a movie with Chuck Norris.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Nice.
So he was kind of his own person, and then my dad's stepdad was kind of the same way. Like, so that's what my dad saw. Like, they don't show emotion. It's not a thing. Like, I think we're in the new era where it's allowed to be okay to show emotion. Just, I'm not saying I'm an over emotional guy. You can ask a lot of people. A lot of people think I have like I guess the male version of resting bitch face, or, I'm kind of an ass, but I'm just blunt. And that's just how I was raised. Like, I'm not going to get hey, it's okay that you made a 68 on your spelling test. It's like, hey, the standard is a B here. You're not making B's, so you're going to get the punishment kind of thing. So I would say like it definitely brought us closer because I'm in trouble. One of the twins is in trouble. My older brother's in trouble. Sometimes you're hoping like, man, I hope they're in more trouble than me because when Dad gets to me, it ain't gonna be that bad.
Right.
He's gonna yell at him, and I'm gonna be like, but Dad, look, I made a 72. He made a 70. Like, I'm still a doctor, kind of, but not really.
Street doc.
Yeah, street doc. Not a good one.
So with that, do you feel like as a dad, it's hard because you have girls, and so I've been trying to explain this to all my guys that have like, hey, you got boys, you don't understand. But as a girl dad, do you see yourself being more emotionally available to them?
I think so. Like, definitely making kids or having kids. Yeah. I'm gonna say making me a dad, but definitely like having kids. I'd say in some aspects it's made me softer than Charmin. Like,
right.
Soft. Like,
yeah,
for sure.
They will do that to you. You know, they come in and it's like, hey, I want you to hold me. I'm tired. Yeah, sure. I'll pick you up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna set you back down. But it's definitely affected that. And like, I'm also trying to teach them that they can kind of be, well, the 6-month-old, I'm not gonna teach her anything yet, but Kaya, my oldest, like, I'm gonna teach her like, hey, you can be independent. Like, you can be tough. Like, all these things are cool. Like, she'll cry over something that's, super minute in my eyes, but to her, that ruins her day.
Right.
Yeah. She spills a little chocolate milk. I'm like, oh, you just spilled chocolate milk. But her, like, man, that was the nectar of the gods right there I just lost. And because Dad makes the best chocolate milk, and now I don't get any more because I spilled it. So that's definitely like seeing some of the things that my parents did, and my wife like helped me open my eyes to it. Like, I don't want to do that to my kids. Like I said, not knocking my parents. My parents were the best people ever. But I also want to make sure that, my girls know that I'm here for them, and I come from a family of all boys. My wife was the first girl born in her family in over like 80 years. Like, her parents didn't think it was a girl until she got here and realized it was a girl.
Jeez.
So asking her dad, who comes from a family of all boys, like, he's helped me a lot too. Like, he's really helped me grow, and I married into a good family. I got awesome in-laws. So some people don't like them, but I can ask him, like, what do I need to do? Like, how'd you handle this? And sometimes just like, yep, you just continue on.
Yep. But you talk about crying for apparently no reason. The other day, Sarah, we like get dinner, and we're sitting at home, and she takes one bite and just breaks down crying, just loses it out of nowhere. And we're like, maybe she just doesn't like it. I don't know. We're like, do you not like it? She just won't talk, just full on like panic attack, crying. Goes over to mom, sits with mom for probably 15 minutes, just crying, won't say anything. And at this point, I'm getting annoyed. Like, I'm trying to withhold, like, telling her to stop crying because I try not to do that. But at this point, I'm like, okay, come on. It's like 15 minutes of crying. Get it over with.
Figure yourself out.
And so the whole time, we're like, what's wrong? Like, why are you crying? Why are you upset? Use your words. Calm down. And finally, she just takes deep breaths. And so I should preface this with my mom, my brother live in England. They were here for Christmas.
Oh yeah, you're one of them.
Yeah,
tea in the harbor. You like your tea in the harbor? I got you.
One of those.
Yeah, that's where we put it.
So they were here for Christmas. Spent a lot of time with her. They've been gone for like a month now. She sees my in-laws all the time, but my sister lives in Fort Worth, so we don't see them very often. Anyway, she like takes a deep breath, and then she just goes, "I just miss my family," and then just starts crying again. And I was like, "Oh."
Ooh,
I don't know how to handle that.
Yeah, we're gonna refer that to the mom.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go outside. I think the dogs are having a bar mitzvah out back. Better go check on them. Yeah, we're gonna refer that to mom. Like,
dude, that's
like I said, I can't brag on my wife enough. Like, she speaks kidneys, whatever you want to call it. Like, she babysits. She helps teach like a preschool, some too, and so. Kyle be saying something. She's like, oh my God, I don't know what that means. And I'm also hard of hearing, like super hard of hearing. You can ask my driver, my fireman, anybody. If I look at you and go, huh? It's not because I'm being rude. It's because I can't hear you. But yeah, she understands what's going on. She can be like, hey, Kraymer, here's what she wants from you. She wants you to cut her sandwich into a triangle and then cut it into quarters from there, not cut it into quarters to begin with. So
I think it's so funny how dads and husbands, like especially us firemen, like we basically live the same life with our families, because we had the exact same conversation with Jonathan last week.
Oh yeah.
About how his wife just understands
the
kids.
It's that mama mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think for us, it's because they do it such an extended period of time
Mhm.
Yeah.
alone, right? Like even Jonathan, right? 24/48.
Yeah.
Like there's 24 hours where he's just like,
They have to figure it out.
Yeah.
They don't have a
he's
here you go,
gone.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But definitely, like Kaya knows that when she's with me, she knows the limits of what she can push,
Mhm.
and she rides that line real fine.
Yeah.
Like if I go into a gas station, I'm walking out with a Paw Patrol juice in my hand because she asked for it.
Mhm.
Oh,
Every time
yeah.
we go get donuts.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the other thing is that I learned having a daughter is when Taylor was pregnant, I was like, man, I'm gonna be a great dad, but like I'm gonna be a tough dad. Like I'm able to say no and not feel bad about it, and that's not the case. I can say no for a certain amount of time, but it doesn't take long.
It has to be something drastic, like, right, hey, Dad, I want to smoke some weed. Nah, we're
No.
probably not doing that
Yeah.
today. No.
We're gonna skip that.
Mm-mm.
Definitely, like going back, I come from a family of all boys, so I'm
Mhm.
like, dude, I'm gonna have a boy, like 100%.
Mm.
My wife calls me, she's like, guess, I opened up the results early. Guess what we're having? I was like, a boy, duh. She's like, oh. I was like, what do you mean? Oh, she's like, we're not having a boy, we're having a girl. And I was like, that's a good joke. Like we're getting close to like, yeah, it's a good joke. It's not April, but what? Yeah, cool. Sure enough, we have a girl whole way through. Like I'll admit it, a lot of guys want. I was like, man, I really want a boy,
Mhm.
all that. But dude, I have that little girl, and now like she's meaner than some of the boys in her class. She's meaner than some men I know. Like she'll stand her ground. She is firm in what she feels. If she doesn't like it, she's going to tell you.
Yeah.
And like I said, she's got great family to help raise her, so it's made her very tough. And then the youngest one, she's just in straight Limp Biscuit mode, just rolling everywhere. She doesn't know what's going on half the time. She's just happy she gets to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Something that I've been curious about is we mentioned you being part of the SISM team, and so I'm curious. You've been a part of getting that going and getting that started. I'm curious what that experience has been like through some of the classes and work through that, and then how or if it has changed your perspective at home or at work.
Yeah. So when we had this idea, I was like, we really don't have anything. I guess I'll preface this. So back in 2018, I was involved in a line of duty death and didn't really know what to do after. It's kind of a touchy deal, but if anybody knows the Andy Lawler story, then you understand what I'm talking about. If you don't, look it up, read the report. It's definitely like something that hits close to home for me. But was involved in that. After everything happened, I got left at the hospital for a few hours in Alpine, Texas, and some DPS dudes showed up, threw me in the back of a Tahoe, and just took me off. Didn't say a word. Got to Fort Davis, and they just put me in a hotel room. Nothing. Just sat there. Rest of my team's up on a mountain. We don't know what's going on. Finally found out that Andy had passed and just didn't have an outlet. So it's like me wanting to be the big, tough macho guy, like, hey, I'm going to tuck that in. So when these dudes see me, it's not going to affect them. Cause now we've got a 10-hour drive home. I can't be crying the whole way home. Like that's just not going to work. So got back to Weatherford, had a very emotional couple days between that and getting back and funeral, all that. I mean, I'm not a guy to talk about my emotions, but I think that's probably the second or third time I can remember as an adult actually crying. And my wife's like, are you broken? Like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, it's okay. Just I think there's some pollen out there or whatever.
Yeah.
But, being the tough macho man thing. And so never really had anywhere to kind of go with that. It's like, it's this whole like mental health talk about things is very new in the fire service, and nothing against the old heads in there, but majority of them might be like, oh, you got feelings, suck it up, boy. Just tuck them in your tummy and keep
Sure.
going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did for years. And running some more back calls, all that kind of stuff. We all work in the fire service. Working in an area that's kind of restless, that definitely puts a strain on you.
Sure.
You see some of the, worst things out there compared to guys that work where they've got a lot of commercial and maybe a nursing home or 7 they run to every shift.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, you wouldn't. I bet. I'll get my fill of it tomorrow when I'm working. But like just realizing that that's a thing. We don't have an avenue. I've always been a believer in like, hey man, you run a bad call. Are you okay? You want to talk about it?
Mhm.
And that's the extent of what I knew. Like, hey, vent to me.
Mhm.
And then I didn't know what to do after that. Like, okay, hey, yeah, your call sucked. I'm glad you got it off your chest. Call me if you want to get a beer, like have anything. Well, then started talking to an officer I really look up to, and I'm gonna name drop him, Trey Doyle. Dude is like baddest of the bad, like one of the best Christian men, like someone I strive to be as a father, like an officer, all that.
Oh yeah.
Got talking with him, and I was like, man, we really need this. It's like, yeah, you're right. And luckily, we had a guy from Fort Worth Fire Department that retired that came on and was part of the SISM and Pure Support team, and
Mhm.
we took the idea to him and took it to our admin. Our admin's like, "Oh yeah, brother, let's get this going." So went through some classes on it. It's definitely like a different experience than what you'd think. It's not the, "Hey man, sorry you ran a bad call. Here's a beer. Deal with it." Like no, learning like how to judge somebody, not judge, but gauge somebody on do they need immediate help? They're gonna need help in a week. Do we need to have a
Mhm.
therapist here now? Like
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So learning that, and that's just a big deal that kind of stood out to me. And we set through a class like psychological body armor was one of our classes, like things that can help you like work out, like recommended to guys. Hey, yeah, you had a really crappy shift. Just go lift something heavy for like 30 minutes. See if that tucks your frustration out. Don't take it
Sure.
home.
Mhm.
Or, hey, the wife's been on you for the last few days. Go lift something heavy. Go read a book. Go run.
Right.
Get that into work. And now it's like, okay, cool. Like this is really starting to help this dude. Or, hey, you don't have a faith you follow. I'm not going to push my faith on you. But I know like when I have problems, I can, go to church. Going to church makes me feel better. Praying makes me feel better.
Mhm.
All that kind of stuff. And the big thing that really came out of it was the therapy aspect of it. So I've never been a guy to talk about my feelings, not a guy to be empathetic
Mhm.
Yeah.
on things. But after going to this class, they were like, hey, if people really need help, you should have like a mental health professional that can help them, a therapist, something like that. I was like, yeah, that sounds cool and all for them. Didn't think anything of it. Well, got to the guy that's running our team, and he's like, hey, you got to have somebody in your pocket to help you. So I'm gonna go try therapy. I mean, I don't think I have things wrong with me. My wife and other people might say otherwise.
Yeah.
But like, you don't have to be some big tough macho dude. Like, go get the help. Like, I've been looking into EMDR, and I wish I could tell you what that. It's like eye motion depolarization. Like, it's something where it helps like bring up the memories that are bothering you, brings them out to like
Mhm.
kind of help discuss them, make them where they're not as like they don't mess with you that much.
Right.
So looking into stuff like that, just literally having somebody you can talk to that isn't going to judge you. It's not going to be like, hey man, I ran 8 calls after midnight last night and I was pissed off every single time.
Mhm.
It's sad. Some people are going to be like, well, this guy sucks at his job. Why are we paying him?
Mhm.
I can go talk to this guy and he's like, yeah, tell me more about it. Like, why did this call suck? Oh, it's because you ran this call 6 years ago and it bothered you. You ran this 2 weeks ago. It bothered you.
Yeah.
So this is my spiel. If you go to therapy, if you're a fireman, go to therapy. If you're a cop, go to therapy. You ride an ambulance, get your fire cert, get off the ambulance, then go to therapy. I'm just kidding. I work with some good medics that ride an ambulance. I'd put up against anybody. So that's definitely like something that I want to like into the home life. If I'm not 100% when I get home because I'm running bad calls or have all this stuff built up, I'm going to take that home and it's going to take away from me being a husband,
Mhm.
give it 100% to my wife so that she knows that I love her and all that. It's going to take away from the kids. Like if I'm at home and I'm grumpy and just, I don't want to do anything. No, that's not how it should be. Like I should be there for these kids. I should
Sure.
be happy when I'm home, be happy and like loving, be full of that love and emotion that they deserve.
Right.
Because I'm gone for 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, or I get deployed for something. I could be gone for 21 days.
Mhm.
It's hard on them girls. So I want to make sure when I'm home that I'm giving them the love. And I think the therapy stuff is really going to help me with being a good dad, being a good father, being a good, guy at work. And like
Yeah.
how it's changed my perspective of work is not everybody gets the luxuries you have. Like I said, I work in a place that I would say the median salary is not very high
Right.
Sure.
for the people that live in my district. But man, to them, that's the best they got.
Mhm.
Like having to really look up and see like, okay, hey, this guy's house is a dump, but to him, it makes him happy. So that's definitely a perspective that's changed for me at work, because not everybody has bad in them. They may come from bad, but that doesn't mean they have bad in them.
Sure.
Right.
And I want to be the guy to see through the
Mhm.
bad to make sure that person's getting what they want.
Right.
Cool. Man, I was talking about some of this stuff yesterday at work with some of the guys, and this question came up that I guess I hadn't really considered, because we see the extremes, right? Like somebody who, when you're dealing with mental health issues or past trauma, you see the extremes. Like when it
Mhm.
gets to the point that they're having a breakdown, or they're deep into addiction, or they're whatever the problem ends up being.
Mhm.
But a lot of the time you don't see it. You don't see it in yourself, right? And so one of the questions that came up yesterday was, how do you know when you're dealing with mental health issues? Like when do you know, and how do you know that you have issues going on if you're not feeling it, right? And it
Right.
was a question that I don't really have a great answer for. I don't
So
know if you guys have an answer for it, but
So for me, I think I said this last time. I'm a very happy-go-lucky guy, and so when I start feeling like, you can almost, for me, I can feel my anger. Like it's like a physical, like I'm like angry, ready to punch someone. So I started to feel myself, one, getting angry, and then two, it was coming on faster and faster with shorter like interims, right? Like, so I'd be angry, get happy, mellow out, and then be angry again. And it was little things, right? Like, said this last time, but B shift, they were
Heard that, dog.
killing
Heard
me.
that.
I was like, yo, you're killing me, Smalls. Like, and then I realized, I was like, it's not them, it's me. They're
Sure.
they're tired. They ran a tough shift, whatever. Two
that's
calls.
just the trigger.
That was the trigger. And so when you start to see yourself do things, lash out, gambling, you and I
Mhm.
both gamble,
A little.
a little. But what happened was, I took a couple $100 and I was like, I'm gonna let it ride.
Yeah.
And it was on like, it was terrible. It was like on figure skating. Like, and I was like, oh, that's a destructive behavior.
Yeah.
That's not me wanting to be gambled. That's not me falling to my vices. That's a destructive behavior because I'm not doing great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
So I
Man.
think my thought is who knows you the best?
me,
Okay, who knows you the second best?
my wife,
Who's always right?
well,
You can
you
say,
got
man.
me. You almost got me. My wife for sure.
Who knows you the best?
I do.
Okay, who knows you the second best?
My wife.
All right, who's always right?
My wife is always
Man, I
right.
trust my wife to like tell me like when I'm being a jackass, she's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you're being a jackass. Like you've got to fix something." And so that, I mean, I've definitely done some stuff that she's like, "Hey, you're being an idiot. You need to fix things." And that's
Mhm.
kind of the big things that kind of made me really start diving into the mental health stuff. Like the SISM team, I was like, "Yeah, it'll be cool," but her telling me some of this other stuff, like, "Yeah, I should go see a therapist. Like I should."
Right.
I can't give people the best advice
Mhm.
if I've never experienced what I'm recommending they do.
Right.
That's like
Sure.
telling somebody, "Hey,
Mhm.
go run 10 miles." If somebody told me that, I'd be like, "You ever ran 10 miles? No, you haven't? Okay, then we're going to settle for 1 mile."
Right.
Or they said, "Yeah, I have." Okay, maybe they know what they're talking about.
Right.
So that's how I take it. Like,
Mhm.
then besides your wife, your crew knows you well.
I was gonna say that the guys at work are
Oh,
second to my
100%.
wife know me the best,
Mhm.
and those are the guys I trust will tell me if I'm out of line.
Oh, 100%. Like my driver, I've got a great relationship with my driver. The other day I was doing something stupid and he walks up, he's like, "Hey man, that's kind of dumb what you're doing. Like, maybe you should tone that back." What do you mean? Like, this is just a normal thing. He's like, "No, you're here trying to play Fruit Ninja with a cleaver. Like, maybe we shouldn't do that." Like, okay, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't.
Not here.
Yeah. Yeah. Go out in the back, cut your finger off out there. Do it after 7.
Yeah. Less mess.
Yeah. So definitely like one of those things. Like you got to find the people that know you well.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're our own biggest critic. Like
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I can justify anything I do. Like, oh man, I'm just mad because I only slept 4 hours last night.
Right.
No, I'm mad because I got a bunch of, mental health problems going on.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm just sleepy because the baby was up a lot. No, I'm mad. Here's the problem. Like all these things are adding up.
Yeah.
But we're men, and we can find the reason that we can justify that this because of that. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's what we do. And then being firemen, we're problem solvers or try to be. So it's like oh, the problem is I'm grumpy as hell when I get home. Well, it's because I had to work with some idiots today.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's it was just something that I guess I hadn't considered before.
Right.
Because I like I said, I mean, you always see the extremes and you hear about
Mhm.
the extremes of like, oh, this guy fell off the cliff and it was because of this. But kind of the little things of
Yeah.
realizing, like a couple years ago, I started taking Vyvanse
Mm-hmm.
and I was working with
Welcome.
Collins.
My
And I
boy.
told him, he and I were pretty close at that point, and I trusted him a lot. And I told him, I was like, man, I know a lot of people start taking whatever the drug is, and it changes them, and they don't see it in themselves, right?
Right.
And I was like, so I'm going to tell you now, before I start taking it, I need you to be my friend and tell me
Mm-hmm.
if I change negatively with this, right? So
Right.
like 6 months later, he came to me and was like, I think it's affecting you pretty negatively. And
Yeah.
so I quit taking it, and after I quit taking it, I realized, I was like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
I was not in a good place.
Oh, yeah.
So
In Vyvanse, so back to like how do you know? Vyvanse is one of the ones it'll cloud you, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
so some dudes start taking tests and you can see it's like, oh, he's been an asshole, right? He's short tempered. Vyvanse is one that'll sneak up on you, right? You're like, oh, well, I need to get this done. Get out of my way.
Oh, dude,
Right.
that's
Mhm.
But
100%.
realistically, you start pushing people away so you can focus on task.
100%.
And that's another thing. So how did I know I was messed up? I start pushing people away. Me and my wife, we didn't talk, we didn't communicate, we didn't hold hands. Like we were just like roommates living
Yeah.
in the same house. And like you said, she's my best friend. And so I was already doing that with her, and it was so easy to do that with my other best friends. All
Yeah.
right. So like dudes would be like, yo, B, where you been? Minding my business. Leave
Yeah.
me alone. So that's another big thing. Like isolation is where you'll find yourself when you start to feel like, oh, hey, I'm going through something mental. Like I'm about to have a mental breakdown, or I'm having depression, or I'm just having anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's another thing. Firemen, we face a lot of anxiety. No one talks about it. Like
Mhm.
we all have a
100%.
little bit of imposter syndrome, like, but no one talks about it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, how do I know I'm going through something? Well, are you feeling anxious just about doing the stuff you've been trained to do daily?
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're a fireman, dude, you know how to deploy hose.
You
But if
stress about it though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Every time you're like, oh man, am I going? Is this gonna be the one
This
where
is the
there's
time.
Am I about
news
to
cameras
spaghetti
driving
this
by, I
shit?
trip
Yeah.
over a rock, and I just
Yep.
or you're training, snap your ankle, training? Yeah,
Right.
I've done that.
But like, so that's a solo. You've done that
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. But that's like some of the things like you say, hey, I'm starting to feel this pressure about something I've done hundreds of times. I did it in Fire Academy thousands of times. I do it at work and training hundreds of times. Right. And then you start to feel that anxiety. That is the beginnings. Like, hey, you should take a internal look and say, hey, okay, what am I internalizing that's making me do this?
Yeah.
Right. Because imposter syndrome, we all kind of have it in some aspect. But realistically, that's like, man, we're not to toot our own horns, but we're some of the best at our jobs. Like firemen across the board, like we all know a shit fireman, but we all know some stellar firemen.
Sure.
And you go, oh man, why are they so good? It's because they've trained that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. They go to fools meetings. They do
Heck, you
hot
don't even have to do that.
classes.
If you want to be into the job, you can be into the job whether you go to conferences, you're part of a club or anything
Right.
like that. Into the job guys are into the job guys.
But so like these dudes that we're around right now are some of the best in the game, right? And that probably even goes for officers and doctors, right? Like there's so many opportunities to better yourself in your career, but everybody's still facing a little bit of that like, oh man, do I belong here?
Mhm.
Should I be here? Have I done enough to be here?
Well,
Right.
you hear it even with guys like Clyde Gordon and Ray McCormick and all those guys. Every time they're on a podcast or on a stage or something like that, and they're mentioned in the same sentence as like some other guy that they have looked up to their whole
Right.
career, and every time they're like, I don't deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence as that guy.
Right.
100%.
Where to us, they're like the cream of the crop, right? And to
Yeah.
them,
Right.
they still are like,
Mhm.
I'm nothing.
This goes
Yeah.
back to like the compliment thing. Somebody pays me a compliment. They're like, hey man, good job on that. It's like, I'm just a dude being a guy. Like I don't,
Right. Yeah.
I'm here to have fun with my boys.
Yeah.
Like I'll say one thing that's been a huge like impact on me, especially recently. Like I've always been a Christian man. I grew up in a Christian household, but it's like my wife, once again, bragging on her, being the backbone, being the driving force or the dragging force, depending on which way we're going to church. But like her, like she has really stepped my faith up, and that's really helped me a lot. Like I know I'm not a perfect Christian. I cuss. I drink me 1 to about 16 beers sometimes. Like I do. That's just my thing. But like she has made it where like faith is so centered in our household, and that comes from her upbringing, like seeing the faith in her parents' household, all that kind of stuff. And that's been huge for us. Yeah. And that's really helped our household. It's helped the girls. Like Kaya loves going to church. She's like, oh, we're going to church today. Yeah, I'll get to see my friends. I'm like, what are your friends' names? I don't know.
Don't care.
Okay. What you do in church today? I don't know.
Hung out with my friends.
Yeah, I got a snack. Like I got animal crackers and an empty cup.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the empty cup on my mouth and walk around and go, and wonder why I can't eat my animal crackers. Like that's the thing. So like definitely like marrying a lady that helped me build my faith has made my home life better. But now like I get to take that to my crew. Like we have a thing at my station. So if you ever come work at my station, if you say GD, that's 10 push-ups right there. Like, cause we noticed that as a crew, we were saying it too much. My driver brought it up once again, my driver looking out for me. He's like, you know what? Every time we say that, we're going to do 10 push-ups. We had a dude work the other day. He's had 110 push-ups. Finally, he realizes like, man, this sucks.
Man, I learned that with you the other day. I was working with you, and I just, it's something that I try not to say, but I don't think about it. It just comes out sometimes. Yeah. And he was like, 10 push-ups. And I was like, what? He goes, you said it, 10 push-ups.
Yeah, 10 push-ups. Like, that's the thing. So getting to transfer that over to my, over to work, like knowing that there's a higher power, there's, I'm having trouble, I can pray about it. I can read about it in the Bible. I can listen, there's a Bible app comes up on your phone every day. Some days they're like super, super like into it. And then other days it's like, okay, that kind of relates, but definitely like having those things have been a huge deal for me in my work. And once again, I'm not claiming to be the world's best Christian because I'm not. Like, I'm not. There's guys that are way better than me, and it shouldn't be a competition, but I'm trying to be better so that I can have a better faith in my home, have better faith at work, and hopefully that helps me build a little more compassion and stuff like that.
So speaking of faith, as one of the other questions I was wanting to ask, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is I'm curious how being there's some guys that you look at, and one of the first things you think of is that he's a Christian. Like Trey Doyle is one of those guys you look at and he's a Christian.
Oh yeah.
You're one of those guys I look at and I know he's a Christian. Man, I see that. And I'm curious how your faith affects your job, your career, like, and if that has changed over your career or if you've noticed a change over your career.
Definitely, like, especially more that I've, dove into the faith, like dove into being a Christian has really helped me. And like I said, there's some people aren't going to believe. They're like, that guy's not, he doesn't follow that because I cuss. Yeah, I'm blunt, like all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely helped me. A quote I love to say is, we say it, my little brother stuff too, is it's from this movie, like Joe Dirte. Little thing goes, is this where we want to be when Jesus comes back, making fun of poor little old Joe Dirt? Take that same thing and apply it to work. Like, don't want to be here, mad at this person that I've run 7 calls on today when Jesus comes back? No.
Right.
Am I a little mad? Absolutely. Because I've been here 7 times a day. But the other part of that is that's my job. Like,
yeah.
And the other part of me as a Christian is to see the good in people. Like still now, like if I go eat somewhere, I have to look towards the door because I'm so scared somebody's going to come in and grab me or grab my family.
Right.
As a Christian, I just know that God's going to protect me. He's going to protect my family. He's going to protect my girls. He's going to take care of us.
One of those things you said really hit. So as firemen, we're fixers, right? We're problem solvers. Yeah. So we run this call and we've been there 8-9 times and we were like, what's wrong here? What's the problem? Because it takes a minute. We're not the brightest, Yeah. Time 5, we could have probably started at that, but time 10, we were like, hey, something's wrong here. Yeah. We're still here. Yeah. And so as problem solvers, we get there and we go, hey, all right, what's really going on? Like, how do we dive into this? And that's a big thing is like, hey, you see problems, but you're like, oh man, once again, imposter syndrome. I don't know if I'm the guy to fix it.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, like I don't know. It's weird to me. Like, I feel weird praying in front of people.
Oh yeah.
But the other part of that is we pray before our meals. I may say the same prayer, and guys that have worked with me know, like, that prayer is down to a T what I'm going to say every time before we eat if I'm the one praying. But like it doesn't matter. That goes back
Yeah.
to it gives me the comfort. It makes me feel better. Like it puts me closer to where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, do you pray over your patients?
No, and only reason I don't is because we live in a world now that
Right.
I don't want to. Unfortunately, I don't want to offend somebody. I don't want to,
Right.
Yeah.
Get in trouble because I prayed over this lady and she's not of my faith.
Right.
That's when, like in that schism class, they're like, "Hey, don't pray for people. One, because you're not a chaplain. Like you can pray
Right.
for them on your own if you want to,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but don't start praying over somebody that's a Buddhist because all you're going to do is offend them and make their day worse. And everything you've told them, you might have lost your validity with them.
Right.
Right.
So I won't pray over patients, but other part of that, if a patient says, "Hey, can I pray with you?"
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop what I'm doing. Let's hold some hands. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Right.
this. Or when I worked down at your station last, walked into HEB, like right out the gate, guys like, "Hey, I want to pray for y'all." And I was like, "Oh, hey, easy, man. I'm just here to get some food. I got to feed these boys. They hungry." And I'm sure people looking at us like, "That's kind of weird. Like, what are these
Right.
guys doing?" But to me, I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like people want to
Yeah.
come in, they want to pray for us. They want to, they're
Yeah.
praying for me to go home to my family. Like, I'm glad I'm not the only one thinking that.
Unashamed faith.
Yeah.
So when I said pray over your patients, I meant like pray for your patients after the call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Sorry.
Everybody-
I could see how that could be
No.
confusing.
Everybody has bad days, but it's like a Christian man. You gotta
Right.
look for
Yeah.
the positive and hope their day gets better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely.
you can't expect your garden to grow if you're over here, not, feeding everybody else's.
Right. Yeah.
So talking about guy walking up to you in HEB and just being like, "Hey, I want to pray for you," and it being like sudden, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's a big thing as a Christian. A lot of people struggle with it. I struggle with it. It's not like embarrassment, but like not wanting to have eyes on you or not wanting to
Mhm.
draw attention to yourself, like in public or even like in a group setting, like having that fear of praying out loud, right? It's a struggle
Mhm.
for people, and so I think that's something as a Christian that I need to work on and I have worked on, is unashamedly being a Christian in front of other people, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so like openly praying in front of other people, like if somebody walks up to you and is like, "You want to pray?" Like, I don't care what's going on. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna make sure the other guys on my crew are good with it.
Sure.
But,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, that is unfortunately the world we live in now is that us three, we may be okay with somebody praying over us, but the lady pushing her cart is mad that, we're doing that in public because we're public servants.
Right.
Like one thing that's really helped me open up, like I said, I'm not a perfect Christian. I'm far from it. Like
Mm-hmm.
here's perfect. And I'm way down here sitting at the bottom, just like, "What's up, man? Is this rock? Hey, I'm bottom." But like I grew up going to churches that was like very prim and proper, like dress up nice.
Right.
Since I met my wife, like I've gone to a church where there's a dude in the front row with a mullet and like a camo jacket on. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, if that guy can wear that, then, I can be a Christian wherever. Like,
I'm okay.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
100%. Like it's still weird to me. And I mean, this is not knocking anybody, but people that like are in church, they're dancing around. I'm like, to me, I was never brought up that way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I look over at my wife. She's having a great time. And I'm like, okay, cool. If it makes her happy, it makes that guy happy. And then me just sitting here humming to myself is making me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I was raised Catholic, so we went to church and it was the exact same thing every single Sunday.
Yeah.
Of stand up, sit down, kneel down, stand up, kneel down, sit down, and nobody is out of line.
Good core strength.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Good core strength.
But now, like the church we go to is not that, which we'll get into faith talk and faith history and all that at some point, I'm sure. But I figured out when I became an adult that the Catholic Church was not something I aligned with.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just talk about kind of not really the environment we're in, but kind of being able to make your own choice and understanding that everybody has a different way of praising Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you can take it away from praising Jesus. Like I worked with a driver. His thing was like, "Hey man, when you shut the door, any decision you make after that is on you because you're a grown adult. So I get to choose how I raise, my wife and I raise our family in Christianity."
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing is like as an adult, like if we want to worship Jesus this way, we're going to worship Jesus this way.
Sure.
We may go to
Mhm.
church every Sunday. We may watch, live stream. There's some people that
Mhm.
frown on the live stream, but
Yeah.
y'all have kids, some
Yeah.
days
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids don't want to get up.
Yeah.
So watching it live stream and getting your blessings in then is what matters.
Mm-hmm.
The only negative thing I have about the live stream is that 1 week turns into 2 weeks, it turns into a month, and then 3 months later, you're like, when was the last time I went to church?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're kind of at that right now.
We don't live stream very often, but if we have to, we have to.
Yeah, it's nice to have, so you still feel like
Connected.
You're connected, right?
Mhm.
But yeah. All right. So one of the other questions that we had that I know you were wanting to touch on was, again, talking back with the mental health and the workplace type of thing, as not even just as an officer, but just with your guys, right? Is what is a good way of addressing or handling a crew member who you notice is struggling, whether it's mentally or just career wise, personal wise, whatever.
So this goes back to the servant leadership we talked about earlier. Is if I trust to let my guys go get a full belly before me, or get back in the rig before I do, making sure they're safe, like asking about their family, like, hey, how's the wife? How's the baby? Did y'all sleep last night? What's going on? Oh, you're sick. Oh, you're having surgery. Hey, can I bring you food? Those kind of things. Like if I can do that, then I know when we get to a fire, like those dudes are going to charge hell with a hand bucket with me, and we're going to get it done. But the other part of that is those guys know they have a rapport with me that they can come to me and say, hey, LT, I'm really struggling with that call. Like, I don't know what to do. Like I've run that same call 7 or 8 times, but it's never bothered me. But today it does, because all I could see was my kid. Like, that's the thing I want. I want guys to come to me, whether I'm part of the peer support team, SISM team, or, they could work for a different department. Like at the end, I'm gonna give you my phone number. If you got a problem, call me. Do no caller ID. I may do the millennial thing and wait till you text me and say, hey, this is such and such, but I don't want no robocalls calling me. But like that's one of the things that if I can find out that a problem's going on, then we can nip it in the bud, like right there. Like, hey, you're really struggling. Maybe you should go home for the day. Let's see if we can get you, sent home for the day if we got staffing, or see if we can get somebody to come in. Or, hey, here's a phone number. Call this person, talk to them. They dealt with the same thing. So that's how I look at it. Like that's my way of addressing and handling it. And that's just on like the career and the mental side. But personally, man, I just got to look in that mirror sometimes and be like, dude, you're fucked up like a soup sandwich. You need to get some help.
I mean, you're right. It's important to be able to notice that in yourself, right? But we talked a couple episodes ago about having that circle of guys around you, right, that you trust.
Oh, yeah.
And for us, a lot of those guys are at work, and so it's kind of like the see something, say something thing. Like if I see that there's something wrong, something off, there's a problem, and I don't address it, and I just let it go, then I'm doing you a disservice by not bringing it up, right?
Yeah.
And it may be something that I bring up, and you're like, I don't want to talk about it right now. And okay, cool. I'm not going to press it right now, but if it's continuing, then I'm
just like I went back to. There's people that think I'm might be a dick or an ass, but hey, cool. If you don't want to talk to me, I've got plenty of other people you can talk to about this problem, and maybe they can help you. Or today you don't want to talk to me because you don't like me, but tomorrow you may like me, so let's talk about it then. And like I also believe is like, how do I say this correctly? Like nobody's spouse should ever like call me, but I know that if your wife called my wife or your wife called me and said, man, Chris is really messed up, like I would take that to heart. Like, okay, I need to be getting to Chris's house like right now. And that's the part of, and like, there's those little firewife communities, they can talk to each other, but your wife puts a thing on there like, Chris is really messed up because they ran this bad call. And then your fireman, what are you talking about? They didn't run any calls yesterday, according to the fireman. It's like, oh, Chris is lying about something. Like he's bottling it up. Let's figure out what's going on.
Yep. Man, our wives do it. I know my wife has told me before, like, not been like, hey, Ashton called me and said, you need to go talk to Brandon right now. But she's told me before, like, hey, Ashton was wondering if you've hung out with Brandon recently or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like something along those lines. And it's one of those where it's like, oh, hey, like, I'm going to shoot him a text, see what's going on type of thing. And even like going back to like, if I bring it up to you and you're like, I don't want to talk about it. I've seen it multiple times where guys, they're struggling with whatever they're struggling with and they don't want to talk about it. But somebody else will bring it up to them they don't want to talk about it. But that kind of is a trigger for them to look at themselves and be like, well, maybe something is going on. Right?
Oh, for sure.
We also don't want to have the over push. Like,
Sure.
hey,
Yeah.
Brandon, what's wrong? Brandon, what's wrong? Brandon, what's wrong? Brandon,
Like I
what's
do
wrong?
with my wife.
Yeah, how many times? Hey, Cheyenne, what's wrong? Nothing. Really? Nothing. Face doesn't say nothing.
Ooh.
Yeah, you don't want to play that game. Like,
No. And it's different with your spouse, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the one you're yoked to.
oh yeah,
You're not yoked to the dudes at work. You feel like it, but you're
Yeah.
not. Like those dudes will get shipped off down south in a heartbeat
Yeah.
and run 400 calls at a net in a day. Look, listen, I understand that you don't want to push guys. So as a SISM team guy, how do you say, hey, look, listen, we need to talk about this. I know you don't want to talk about it right now, but how do you get them to come back to it?
it's just like anything. Like, it's a follow up.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, Brandon, you don't want to talk about it today? Cool. You have my phone number. Next tour, I'm gonna see you at training. Hey, dude, you feeling better? Anything bothering you?
Right.
No, we're good. Or I always give people, like, I haven't had a lot of interaction with these because it's new, but like before this, I'd tell people, hey, you don't want to talk to me. Like, find you somebody you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it could be like, I ask you, hey, what's wrong? You don't like me? Cool. But here's a list that in your station, or, you can ask who's on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And cool, I really like this guy because we get along. Like, he's real big into being a little sissy boy, paints toenails, whatever. But hey, they get along. They're great. Cool. Do your
Right.
thing. Whereas, like, I have friends that if they call me, like, we click, we get it, and I can tell when something's wrong with them. I just by almost standing there like a text message, like, hey, what's wrong? Oh, this bullshit happened at work, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Talk to me about it. Like, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk then, follow up with them. Make the push. Just like
Right.
in the best way to say this, did your wife say yes going out with you the first time?
Oh,
Or
A long time ago.
did you have to talk to her, like get to know her, figure out what's going on? You had to follow up, like, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. I mean, I'm not dating these dudes at work, but like, do I need to push that up to them? Like, that's how I look at it. Like,
Right.
you're trying to win this, like, you're wanting this person to be vulnerable with you. But the other part is they have to know I can be vulnerable with them.
right.
And what we talk about is between us. It's not between me, Chris, Brandon. It's me, you, and the fence post. Anything in between there, we better figure out where it came from.
Yeah.
So, and this is a men's podcast. So, do you feel like men have a harder time, not necessarily opening up, but following up and getting to that point?
Yes and no.
Right.
Like, think about it in your house. Like, how many times tell your wife, oh man, I'll do that project next week. Yeah.
Every
I
day.
think we've been in our house like 3 years. My wife's still waiting on one project to get done from day one.
Yeah.
Ask me because we don't have a doggy door in my house. I'm like, oh baby, I'll get that next week. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
no, like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. But we're also go to work. I don't like doing projects around the house. I'm not that handy. You need it
Mhm.
broken, I'm the dude, but
Right.
you give me a screwdriver, I'm gonna somehow figure out how to drive a nail with it, kind of thing. But go to work, like, hey man, I'm gonna follow, dude, how was your fire? Like, I love fire. I like
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Right.
like, hey, I'm gonna follow up with you on that. So if I know your emotions is what's bothering you,
Mm-hmm.
or a bad call, like, yeah, I'm gonna follow it up with you. Like, I want you to be the best because my grandma lives in the district where I work. So when the crew coming tomorrow, comes on and they've had a bad call, I want to know they're gonna go to my mamu's house and they're gonna be ready to go.
Right.
Well, and I think one of the things that goes with that is outside of just being like on the SISM team or somebody that people see as somebody they can go talk to, is just as an officer of a crew, why it is so important to have that rapport with your crew, not just for fireground, like trust and stuff like that, but to have that rapport with your crew to where they know they can talk to you, is because as an officer, if it gets to a point where it's starting to affect their job, then you have to step in and do something whether they like it or not.
Yeah, it
right?
doesn't affect me going, just them going home. It affects me, my driver,
Yeah.
the next dude crew. Like, it affects all them.
And
Yeah,
you
dudes
don't
coming in
want
on
it to get to a
overtime.
point where you have to pull the, hey man, now I'm your officer and I have to intervene and do something. I want it to be a friend conversation
Yeah.
before that to where we can resolve it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that goes back to having a good rapport with your
Yeah.
crew. Once again,
Mhm.
working for good officers taught me what I want to be to my guys.
Yeah.
And like working for bad officers taught me, like, okay, I
Mhm.
don't want to be that to my guys. Like, I want to make sure that my guys trust me. They like me. Like, I know their kid's name. I know their wife's names, all that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to say like, hey, I need your wife's phone number, unless like, hey, you broke your leg and somebody's got to call her.
Mhm.
I'll call her from your phone, kind of thing. But I worked at a place that we'd hire new guys in, and I mean, it was, hey, we're just going to treat them like crap. Like, we're not going to talk to them.
Mm.
We're going to put them on the ambulance, and they're going to be all the cooking, all the cleaning. And that happened to me my first year. Like, it made me not want to be a fireman no more.
Mm.
So then I get off probation. We hire new guys in. I see them doing the same thing. I was like, why are we doing this? Like, this kid is 20 years old, fresh out of the fire academy. If we get buried up later, I want to make sure he knows who I am. And he's not going to be like, dude, fuck that guy. He threw bananas on the floor and then maybe, clean them up with a towel. Like, no.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I try to do now. Like, I get a new FTO in, like, hey, one of the first things, like, this is a big boy job. We're going to do big boy things, but let me know you. Like,
Yes.
you allergic to anything? You scared of anything? All that kind of stuff. Like, those are big things I've really pushed for.
Yeah.
And I want that.
Well, it's like the guys I work with at work is I want to know who they are. I want to know their family. I want to invest in them because you can say one way or the other, but if I am close with you and close with your family and I know your family, I know what you got going on, there's just that little bit extra motivation there to make sure that you're okay, right?
Mhm.
Whether that's on the fire ground or in the station or whatever. If I don't know anything about you, I'm a little bit less likely to put that effort forth, right?
Right. And so that goes to like knowing your family, right? Like, so I know your daughter, I know your wife. We're on the fire ground. I'm going to work extra hard to make sure you stay safe, right?
Yeah.
And same goes for you and same goes for the boys, right? I think it's one of those things that the fire service is so tight knit, right? It's a brotherhood, but it truly is an entire family.
There's a difference between a brotherhood and a facade of a brotherhood.
Mhm.
You want to be, you
Absolutely,
don't want
yes.
to have the facade. You want to be the one that cares for people.
Right. Yes.
And I think like where we work is still relatively small, right? And so we know there's a few people now that have come on that I don't know that good
Mhm.
or I don't recognize the name or whatever. But for the most part, I know everyone who works at our department, especially the guys at stations around me, right?
Mhm.
So I may not be as close with them as I am with the guys I work with every day, but I still know them, right?
Mhm.
For sure.
So
Another thing that I kind of wanted to touch on too, and like being an officer, being a Christian man, we talked about like the publicly praying. Like, I've had to learn that you can talk to somebody till you're blue in the face. You're not going to change their opinion. If you know the donkey and the lion story, you know that story?
I heard it a long time ago, but I would
You know the
I
donkey-
tell it
know.
to you.
All right. So the donkey and the lion story. There's a donkey and a lion sitting outside talking. Donkey comes up, says to the lion, "Hey man, the sky's red." Lion kind of looks at him real confused, and he's like, "Come again?" It's like, "Yeah, the sky's red." Lion goes, "Nah, man, it's blue. The sky is blue. That's why it's called like sky blue. They don't make sky red crowns." But they keep going on and on arguing. Like, you cannot change this guy's mind. He's got a following behind him that the sky is red. Like, he is the smartest dude there. Like, he knows the sky is red. You got the sky blue people over here. Finally, it gets down to the point that they're like, "Hey, you want to settle this? Let's go to like the big lion, the guy in charge of everything. Like, he is the wisest of them all."
Mufasa.
Yeah, Mufasa, Mufasa, Mufasa. But they go there. They talk to the big lion, and the donkey's like, "Hey, king, sky's red." The other lion's like, "No, it's blue." Like, you know that. Okay. The donkey storms off. You can't change his mind. So the king lion comes down, talks to the other lion, and says, "Why are you arguing with the donkey?" He goes, "Well, because I know I'm right." It's like, "That's fine. But you also shouldn't get caught up on the opinion of jackasses that are going to change your mind. Like, he's going to be a jackass in his mind, and, I may be a jackass in his mind, but I can't change it. So let's stick true to what I know."
Yeah.
And like all that kind of stuff. And that, like, put that with your faith. Like, hey, I'm going to stick true to being faithful, being a Christian, being a good officer, being a guy that cares about people, regardless if people think that of me or not. Like, if I feel I'm being that way, then that's what I want from people.
Man, I think that's so important too, is having that confidence in yourself. So, especially in what we do, but just in life in general, is being confident in who you are and not being ashamed of who you are.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're going to be
It was
challenged whether it's somebody directly challenging you or you just feel the life, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So having that confidence in yourself to be who you are is so important.
for sure. And that's just I got a Bible verse down here, Philippians 2:3. I'm sorry, I don't pronounce words well, so if you don't like it, oh well. Send me like an English teacher that can
He
help me.
means Philippians 2:3.
Yeah, got that draw. But it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves." Goes back to
Mhm.
this. I'm going to value like the people around me. I'm going to value that they're happy. Take it to our job. Like I'm going to make sure that when I go to Meemaw's house, her batteries are going off in her smoke detector. It's 2 a.m. Haven't slept. Hey, go get some batteries. Put batteries in the smoke detector. Like I
Right.
want to value those people because one day that's going to be me, and I want those people to like put me
Mhm.
above them and like give me the sacrifice to make me
Right.
better. And that's my wife. Like once again, I can't brag on my wife enough. Like if she puts me above others,
Mhm.
that helps me be a better man, helps me be a better husband, better father, all these kind of things, and vice versa. If I put her above others, which she should always be, it goes faith, marriage, kids,
Mhm.
then she knows she's always going to have the best from me.
Right.
So something kind of along with that of putting others above yourself is something that is surprisingly hard to do in this job is just being kind, right? Because
Heard
we're
that,
all,
dog.
to some level, we're all jaded by the job. We talked about this
Mhm.
last week of just that you become jaded over time. You run the same people in the same conditions. They're doing the same dumb shit. And
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
like, it's surprisingly hard to be kind. But like Jonathan said, right? It's not hard to not be an asshole.
Yeah.
It's not
And then
hard to not
listening
be an
last
asshole.
night, Chief Gordon was on the scrap, listening to him and talking
Mhm.
about. There's a question about why he loves his job or why he loves teaching, whatever it was, and he's talking about how he's always worked in these low income areas, high crime
The
areas.
best.
Yeah, well,
The
working in these
favorites.
areas, and how for 6 months he went and worked in like a highfalutin area, and he said in 6 months he realized these people don't need me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do for these people, right? And so in
Mhm.
these low income, high crime areas, he's running all these people that are doing bad shit. A lot of them are doing bad shit, right? But
Mhm.
he was like, I just learned like they're people, right? It doesn't take a lot to just be kind.
Mhm.
Just because they're doing something dumb doesn't mean I got to be an asshole to them, right? I mean,
Right.
sometimes you got to be an
Yeah.
asshole.
Like sometimes that's the only way that people understand
Yeah.
is,
Right.
hey, you have to be blunt with people. And that's where a lot of guys travel up to work with me. And they're like, man, you're like real stern with that guy.
Got to be sometimes.
Yeah. Like
Right.
sometimes you have to explain to them,
Yeah.
like, hey, I understand that you think you're burning wood, but there's the wood that, the Lord made that comes from a
Yeah.
tree. There's the wood that came from a factory. Like there's a difference there. So
Yep.
like we have to explain that to people.
This is
Those are my favorites on the illegal burns.
Yeah.
If they start arguing, I'm like, look, man, I don't make the rules. I don't really care, but I have to
Yeah.
tell you not to do it. And
Yeah.
you're not going to do it.
Yeah. If you have a problem, there's a phone number you can call, speak to the fire marshal, and y'all can discuss your problem there.
Yeah.
So like that's just my big thing. Like make sure that we're nice to these people and like
Mhm.
definitely working in those lower income areas. Like it definitely humbles you.
Yeah.
And I
Oh, for sure.
like once again talking with my driver. I brag on that dude a lot. Like he is. I won't even call my work wife because my wife's way prettier than him. But like this dude, like he helps keep me grounded. We click very well, all that kind of stuff. And he made the comment. He's like, dude, we're working here. I've experienced more in 6 months working here than I did in 3 years working down in the other battalion because that's a nicer area. Like
Yeah.
people are calling for, actual stuff. They're not calling because I've had a cough for 2 weeks and it hasn't gone away.
Mhm.
It's absolutely a different.
Like
a different culture.
we are their help.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's like some of the officers around me have like given me good examples of how to deal with those problems and how to be kinder.
Mhm.
I had a coach tell me that, hey man, you're real blunt and kind of a dick. So like, let's work on that.
Yeah.
And I've really been trying to work on that. And it's amazing how people respond differently when
Yeah.
you're not like, hey, like, hello, sir, how are you?
Well, it's just like, and it goes the other way too, right? So, a good example the other day, speaking of illegal burns, working with Dusty, we go on illegal burns, guy's burning pallets, and he genuinely didn't realize he couldn't burn pallets, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
he comes up on the gator as we're showing up, and he comes up and immediately kind of has that aggressive attitude, like, what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And so immediately the counter to that is like, if you come at me strong, I'm gonna have to come at you strong. I can't be soft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, pretty quickly it got resolved and it kind of calmed down. We had a conversation about it, and no big deal, right? But it's one of those, like, if you come out the gate as an asshole, it's like, well,
Yeah, you shot
we
that
go.
conversation in the
And-
foot. Yeah.
And it's just like you were just saying, like, if you start with kindness, sometimes people are just angry, right?
Yeah, you
But-
can be the nicest person to them, and they are still going to hate you because of what you do, who you stand for.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, oh, you're a dude telling them they can't do something? Man, piss off.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
And
this is
What's
America.
even funnier is the people that call us and then we show up and then they're assholes to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you want the help or no?
Yeah, you
Like,
literally
called
called
me,
and said,
bro.
I want
Yeah.
your help, and
Yeah.
here I am trying to help you.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, brother, like, you're not helping me the way you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well,
I think a lot of that is like, so back to shooting a conversation in the foot, right? Like, so you can approach dudes on your shift, on your tour, and your battalion, right? Like, you can say, hey, man, do you really need to talk to somebody? Or you can be like, hey, what the fuck's wrong with you? Right? Like, and I think that's how we as men have to approach this whole conversation.
oh,
right?
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
my guys know there's. So I worked for an officer. Apparently, he called me Kraymer,
Mm-hmm.
and then he also knew me as Harbold. Like, there was two different, like, took his medicine, didn't take his medicine kind of dude. So one day he's looking at
Jekyll and
staff, and
Hyde.
he's like, who's this Harbold dude? And they're like, I thought we were getting Kraymer today. And I'm like, what do you mean? And the other guys are like, that is Kraymer and Harbold. It's the same guy. Like, my guys know that. Like, hey, there's play around, have fun, and then there's like, hey man, like, really,
Mhm.
let's be serious here. Like,
Right.
give him the old,
Yeah.
blue steel face from Zoolander.
Mhm.
Like, we doing this? Like, talking to them, and if they know that I'm being serious, 'cause I'm a big jokester. Like, I can turn anything to a joke.
Yeah.
That's just like my deflection thing. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
oh man, hey, that dude broke his leg. Yeah, but he didn't break two of them. Like, that kind of
Got
thing.
another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I broke my ankle, it's like, oh man, I broke my ankle. But
Yeah.
oh well. Or I got bad hair. Like, the Lord knew I'd be too powerful if I had good hair and I was handsome.
That'd be the worst.
Yeah.
Whoa,
So,
and handsome. Ooh.
yeah, and handsome.
But
So,
now we're getting deep.
like that's the thing. Like, the guys know when I'm joking and when I'm serious. So when I'm
Right.
serious and I come to them with a serious conversation, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you have, like, this has been going on for a couple tours. Like, you've been super
Mhm.
mad. You're not easy to, like, talk to. What's the deal? Oh, well, I'm mad about my kid's daycare doing this, or my wife made me do this, or, B shift does this, or C
Mhm.
shift does this. Like, hey man, we're all adults. Let's talk about it first. If that doesn't work, then we'll move on. Or, I'm just pissed off about that call we ran this morning where nothing's going to happen to the parents because they did this, or,
Mm-hmm.
the people living there, nothing's going to happen. And they're, got this dog chained up outside and it's 10 degrees outside. Nothing's going to happen. Hey, I get that. And then you come to find out, oh, hey, you've run a call like the same situation. Like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Let's work through this. And then once again, refer to someone who is of a higher level of care. We do it in
Mm-hmm.
our fire and EMS calls. Like, if I don't know what to do, I'm going to call a captain. The captain doesn't know. Luckily, I'm house with a chief. And I can be like, hey, yo, chief,
Yeah.
hypothetically, like, dude comes in, wants to do this. What do I do?
Yeah. What would you do in this situation,
He'd be like-
Chief?
He'd be like, well, I'd wonder why you're at work, Kraymer. And okay, cool. Got it. So that's one way to look at it.
So one of the other questions I had was, what is your motivation in your career or your personal life or job or whatever? And I have a feeling a lot of your motivation is just going to fires.
Dude, I love going to fires. That's the stuff, daddy.
Cutting holes.
Man, I'll cut holes. I'll kick doors. I mean, I'll be good at it, but whatever. You try and get me riled up.
Cutting
Good.
holes is an
Yeah.
art.
Yeah,
It's an art.
Yeah, man.
absolutely.
Hey, you know what? You mess up on, your fireman mess up on a hole. It's on me.
Yeah.
Because I haven't taught him. I assumed, hey, man, you know how to cut a hole? Yeah, dude, I've been to a few classes. They taught me how.
I saw a video.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they taught you to cut towards your leg. Okay. Yeah, man. Love to go to that class. Have a talk with that dude. I once heard a guy say, put a tourniquet in your bunker pocket. So when your guy cuts his leg off on a roof, man,
I
maybe
don't remember
should listen
that
to
part of
advice.
Doll's class.
Hey, man, easy.
Scooted over that.
Easy. But no, like, so what they're referring to is we had a fire,
Mhm.
pull up, and IC tells us, hey, go cut a hole for ventilation because there's reported people trapped. All right. Well, I've got a few holes in my day. I'm not going to say I'm the best. I'm no like New York, Dallas guy, whatever. Like them dudes are cutting holes and they're good at it. Like it's I shut good. But get there, throw a ladder, climb up, and ask the fireman, hey, you cut a hole before? Yeah, I've cut one before. I've been to a few classes. Cool. So drivers getting dressed because all you had to do is throw an air pack on because our drivers get bunked out going to fires because they're boys. They want to work.
Mhm.
I'm not going to stand at the pump and be like, oh,
Hell yeah.
I think your calculations are off by 2 PSI, sir. But we get up there, start sounding the roof, go to cut this hole. And I'm like watching my fireman. I was like, dude, I'd hate to see you dance if that's how you cut a hole because it is rough. Once again, me as an officer should have taught him, like,
Mhm.
shouldn't have assumed. You know what they say when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me.
Right.
Yeah.
Mostly me. But so we cut this hole and, you know, wait, hey, yeah, cut it, bust it, awesome. Well, I get some calls, texts, following days like, why the hell did you cut a hole on a single wide trailer? Well, because the crews inside said they had high heat, low visibility, the roof was good. Like I've been up on brick stick houses that had worse roofs,
Mhm.
and they're in there searching for people possibly trapped. Well, why didn't you bust windows? Well, it was weird when we went to that side of the house. The windows were not smoke stained. There was no condensation. I was like, that's kind of weird.
Mhm.
Later, we go inside the house and we see that the doors to those rooms are padlocked shut from the hallway,
Mm.
and they're blocked by stuff. So that's why we could have busted windows. We wouldn't have done anything.
Right.
But talking to the crews inside that were on the hose line searching, like, dude, y'all did that? And it was like, jammy Sammy, let's go, man. This was awesome.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Like my motivations, like for my career, I'll start that. I'll go career. Like there's 4 of them they want me to touch on: career, personal, daily, long term. My career, I come from a family where my dad was a fireman. So like there was a guy that used to work for where my dad worked. He posted a picture yesterday, and I've had a guy message me. He's like, dude, I worked for your dad when I was a young kid. Like he put a huge mark on me. Like that made me who I am today. So like hearing that, once again, don't accept compliments. I'm like, yeah, man, like, I don't know what to say, but man, like I want to strive to be like the guy that if, you know, y'all have, you know, somebody's boy comes and works for me when I'm on the tail end of my career,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey man, they're telling, I don't know, somebody in my family, like, hey, this guy was my officer. Like he made a huge mark on me and it made me want to be better each day. Like that's what I want in my career. I want to like, I don't think I'll ever be the guy that's like all over the internet, like unless I do something really dumb, but
Not out of the question.
yeah, not out of the question at all. But like I want to be the guy that like makes things better. Like I want to make sure that I'm leaving my job better than I found. I know that's like the typical answer, like, oh, I want to leave this job better than I found it. And we want, 0.1% better daily, but that's it. Like,
Right.
that's all I want to do. Like, I want to make sure that dudes love coming to work and like, they're just happy. Like, that's what I want. I love to be like the happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah.
So my career, I want to be known as that guy. I'm known, like I said, I'm known as being a dickhead. That's because I'm gonna roast you pretty hard.
Yeah.
I got a dude tell me he made, world famous rice one day. I don't know what world he was living in, but that stuff was not famous. I don't even know if you call it rice.
Just speaking of rice real quick, it amazes me how many people cannot cook
dude.
rice.
Oh, I burned
I
some
thought
last
it
night.
was a relatively simple
No.
skill.
Nope. I burned some last night, dog. So, fun fact, after that, got on Amazon. Amazon has 1, rice cookers.
Don't need
2,
one.
yeah,
What, dude? We got a rice cooker at the station. That thing is better than sliced bread.
it's
Don't
the
need it.
tits. And then 2, the Instapot has a setting for
yeah, it does.
rice.
Yeah.
Well, dude, if
We
you're
got
eating
one of those.
Instapot style rice, man, brother.
Elevator doesn't go all the way up
Yeah.
over here. It's okay.
No, I'm getting. I know. What you're saying.
Yeah.
The rice goes into pot instantly. But like that's the thing. Like in my career, I want to make a mark. I want to continue a legacy.
Right.
Where I worked before I did now, I was the first, second generation fireman. My dad worked there.
Mm-hmm.
There were dudes I worked with, like the BC that retired on my first day, worked with my dad. Like there were guys there that worked under my dad with my dad. So I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like that's the cool. And like I loved hearing those guys talk about like all the stuff my dad did.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I left, like that was a big blow to me. Like I love this place. I love the people, but I got to do what's better for my family.
Right.
Where I'm at now, like I've been a part of for, I guess, as long as I've been a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a part-time guy or a volunteer.
Yeah.
So I had this opportunity. It's like, yeah, I'm going to make my wife happy by having a better schedule. And like, I'm going to continue a legacy. Like I could always build on what my dad had there, or I could build my own.
Right.
And that's what I want. Like that's the stuff I want. And there's guys I work with that have badass legacies. Like, I mean, like I said, Trey Doyle, he's a great officer. I think, Tyler Ramsey, like he's a great officer. Like, these dudes are stuff that I'm like, dude, I want to be like these guys. Like, and that's how I want to build my career, is like getting help from dudes that could help me be good.
Definitely.
Like my personal motivation, man, I just don't want to suck.
Work.
Like I want to be the best. Like I'm a people pleaser. So like, you're like, hey man, I'm thinking about running a marathon this weekend, but you gotta be 2 people in it. Dude, I guess, I mean, I'll strap the old Lamborghinis up and we'll get to rolling, but I'm not going to be the guy that's doing that, but I don't want to suck. Like I'm going to give it everything I have.
Right.
And then like, that's just my personal motivation. Like I want to be good. I want to be the best. Like I want to strive to be the dude, the dude abides.
Yeah.
And then like my daily motivation, once again, don't want to suck. Like, I want to get out of bed. You can ask my wife, some mornings I'm a grouch. And like, it's funny. We first started dating. I'm this big morning person. She's like, I want to sleep till sundown kind of thing. Oh no, my wife can be up all night with that baby. And she is just ramming ready to, like, in the morning, like, she may not look the happiest. I mean, she's always beautiful in my eyes because, I mean, she is the most beautiful woman I ever know.
Right.
What's up, baby? But I don't want them brownies when I get home. I'm building points. But, like, now she's the morning person. Me, I'm like, leave me alone. Especially when I get home from work. Like, I don't sleep good at work. We could get up a bunch, or, like, I always have this fear that I'm going to miss a call.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's technology. I can't rely on technology. Or work at a station where your fireman and your driver don't have the doorbell ringer in their room or the telephone. Guess who's answering those things all night when the natives come and knocking? Like, hey man, you got a cigarette? No, I don't. It's 3 a.m. Leave me alone, dog.
The natives.
Yeah, the natives, the locals, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. The natives, like you work in the jungle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a concrete jungle.
It always makes me smile inside when I hear you on the radio about the locals.
Yeah, I refer to them as the locals.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So, like, but a local comes knocking at the door, like, hey, man, I need a cigarette. Hey, can I use your phone charger to call my PO? I'm like, dude, it is 2:37 in the morning. If your PO answers right now, you've got a big problem. It's not me. But, like, that's like my daily goal is like, be the guy, be the dude, do the things that make me better. And my long-term goal is I want to retire healthy and like at a good age.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a finance guy, but I want to make sure that when I retire that I've got enough money to get by. I don't want to be working until I'm 80, greeting people at Walmart, trying to form tackle somebody because I stole some candy.
Yeah.
That's not me. Like I want to be happy. Like that's a long-term goal for me. I want to live on my little piece of property. I want to walk outside, watch my girls have fun, watch,
Hey, real quick. Do you think you're going to be form tackling at 80?
Dude, man, with today's advances in modern medicine and technology, it's not, I have to say I might live to be 150, 200. This body right here built by pure American beef,
and
Coors Light
Krispy
and energy
Kreme.
drinks. What?
And Krispy Kreme.
I don't like Krispy Kreme. We don't have those where I live.
Oh, well, yeah, that's because you live out in the sticks. That's
I
right.
live in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, like my motivation is like long term. Like my wife will tell you, like I get super fixated on something. Like I want to be the best at this. I want to be the best at bow hunting, and then kind of just dies off. Like, yeah, man, yeah, I'll shoot my bow, whatever.
God,
or
my wife gives me hell all the time
Yeah.
because like every week I'm like, I'm gonna try this. And
Yeah.
she's like, no, stop. You don't need another hobby.
that's my wife.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're trying to save up to buy some land. I'm like, but I really want a Jeep. Like I want to. She's like, you already had one, you sold it. And I'm like, but I want another one.
I want a better Jeep.
Yeah, like that's what I want. Like so, like that's the long term motivation is like focusing on those goals that she wants, not just for her but for us.
Right.
And like letting that motivate me, like, hey, yeah, when I'm working overtime, yeah, it sucks because I'm gone, but in the end game, like it's going to help me with my retirement. It's going to put a little more money, so mama can go get some Chick-fil-A when she's hungry, like that kind of thing, and like make sure the girls are taken care of. That's my motivation for like the long term thing too. Is we strive for our goals and we push for those, and have that.
Yeah.
Dude, so just this last 4-day I had, me and my wife, we drove out to Grapevine, looked at a Expedition, beautiful 2022
Oh, dude,
Platinum.
my wife's got one.
Dude,
Loves it.
gorgeous, love it, right? Then we got home, talked about finances, and we were like, hey, we can do this, but where do we want to be in 5 years? Like, and I know 5 years is not like super long, but it's like,
Oh,
hey,
it is. Like,
Oh,
it's super closer than you think.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's way closer than you think. And so we were like, hey, where do we want to be in 5 years? Do we want to be, hood rich in beautiful cars and living a dream? Or
Oh,
do
yeah,
we
dude.
want to literally have property, have land, and we can do what we want to do? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like,
so
that's my wife's thing too. She's like, no, like, I love buying guns. Like,
you and me both,
You
brother.
and everybody else I
I'm
work
a
with.
red-blooded American.
Yeah.
I like shooting things.
Exercising those freedoms.
Yeah. Like, I'll come home. She's like, what's that case? I'm like, nothing, baby. It's just I found it on the side of the road. Would you believe there was a Glock in there? It's crazy, isn't it? And it came with earmuffs for the baby when I take her home.
Wild.
Like, that's the thing. She's like, no, you don't need to do that. Like, she'll get on. I mean, I wouldn't say get on me, but she gives me a stern talking to, like I'm a kid sometimes, that, hey, you have these goals that you want to have land. You want to have all this. But here you are buying frivolous, dumb stuff.
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, you're right. And I'm like, but also looked at the Amazon card history. So let's play the give and take here.
I'm telling you, man, pull your card from Amazon. It'll change your life. So at the minimum, it'll make you pause and think like, hey, do I really need this? Because Amazon's super simple. Like, it's like 2 clicks and it's at your front door. You're like,
Yeah.
Well, part of
That's
it's
the
on me.
case.
Like, I enable my wife. She's like, hey, I want to get this for the girls. I'm like, girl, you get
Cool.
it.
Do
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Those
me
girls
too.
need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why the girls need switchblades, but get it. Like, yeah. Oh, you need this? Cool. Yeah, get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's me. Like, I'll take that hit.
Oh, yeah.
But-
Look at you being a leader.
Hey, man, you can lead, follow, get run the fuck over. I want to just lead, so I don't get ran the fuck over.
That's
Yeah.
true. Hell yeah.
But
We talked about this the other day, but you come from a department with a true truck. Actually, you come from 2 departments with an extended truck history, right?
yeah.
And so I work at a department that does not have a truck history, and it
Mhm.
probably never will. But as it goes, we're in the market. Our Quint's a little older, and I was thinking, man, what if you could have if you could be at the forefront of your truck history, right? Like
Yeah.
you could be the guys picking out 6 chainsaws for one side of the truck and the 12 for the other. You could have 15 K12s, and you could have Paratech tools and struts and stuff. And it's just like, man, what if you get to be at the beginning of that truck history? And so with that, I think truck work is you don't need a true truck because it's more of a mentality. It is the perfection and the professionalism that you put into it.
Well, it's kind of like that's kind of where we're at now in the county, right? It's
Mhm.
like we haven't had a truck before, and we're at the beginning of developing that truck culture. But at the
Mhm.
same time, where we work, everyone has to be able to be a truck, right? So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if you're on the truck, you're on the engine, you're first do, second do, third do, whatever.
Right.
Whatever that job demands at that time, and whoever is there, they're doing it, right?
Right.
So if we pull up first on the truck and second do's 5 minutes away, well, we're an engine, right?
Mhm.
But if we're second do or they're like pulling up behind us or whatever it is, we're truck. Doesn't matter if we're truck or engine, we're doing the truck work, right? We just
Right.
have a big ladder on top, and I like it a lot.
I think one of the best things I ever heard talking about like truck culture is I had a driver, and you'd think that the tires on that truck were square because it didn't go anywhere. But like when I took this job I'm in now, he's like, you're gonna go ride an engine. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm like, but you have hose on your truck. It's like, but
Right.
here's a good thing. I don't have to use that on your rig. You have to use it every time, and you're tethered to it like an idiot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like you can be them boys. Like you can have your culture making you good.
Right.
Whereas like he said, we're in a place that you're going to learn, you may be expected to know it all, but you definitely got the guys that are like, I want that guy to do it over that guy. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, and nowadays more than more than back in the past, right? Being a well-rounded fireman gets you so much further,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think we've learned over time, like as we develop, like, hey, being a fireman is not just a fireman. And so then you got to be a contractor. You got to be a roofer, a welder. You got to know your gases and your pH levels. You got to know so many
Yeah.
things. And so being that well-rounded fireman, it gets you a lot further than just being, oh, I'm a truckie,
Yeah.
right? I can Mongo go pull ceiling, Mongo go cut hole,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a lot better to be a well-rounded fireman.
Man, mostly this. I know my squirrel brain just ripping
There we
right
go.
now. I know I've got the crazy eyes going, which is like anybody that's ever worked with me is like, oh, watch out, Kraymer, got the crazy eyes going. Like this just popped in my head. Like I'm gonna ask y'all, what do you do to like keep yourself grounded? Like what's your stuff to keep you grounded? Like for me, I like to work out every day. Am I some big yoked up mo? No. I like to work out. Like a 20-minute workout's better than a 0-minute workout. I like to hunt. I like to fish. I like to be with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that I like to do. But I want to know for y'all, like y'all are the one leading this mental health podcast. Like what grounds y'all? What makes you like keeps you sane until you can coast through those problems?
So lately, it's actually been reading. I am not a big reader. I need my finger and like we're gonna have to sound out a few words.
Yeah.
Is land.
Yeah. Peninsula. I don't know what a peninsula is. I don't know what the fuck is that. Anyway, so reading. Actually, at some point during the podcast, I'm gonna bring up what books I'm reading, right? So like recently I picked up a book about yay thick. I mean, it might be 20 pages, and it's So You Started an LLC, which I did recently. And like just that little bit of reading has actually helped me, one, slow down,
Yeah.
and then
Grab the
two,
wall.
it's actually helped me start to like focus on my goals, right? So like I said, me and my wife, we had a long conversation, and I realized, I was like, oh yeah, I do have goals, and I can actually clearly see them now.
Mhm.
And so that little bit of like slowing down and taking 10, 20, 30 minutes out of my day to just read a book has helped out phenomenally.
Yeah.
Like what else? Like you like to go shoot guns? You like to cook?
Oh, hell yeah, I like to shoot guns, dog. I'm a world champion shooter, according to myself.
Let me see those stat cards.
Yeah, I don't got one of them. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
say
yeah.
I am. But no, actually, so Connor Barnes, he works for,
The ambulance.
yeah, he works for the
Yeah.
ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and him just went shooting at Shoot Smart like 2 days ago.
Good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I shoot a lot.
Okay. You can shoot that shot like you got nothing to lose.
You know, shooters shoot, baby.
Man, I don't know that I have like a thing that keeps me grounded. I'm so ADD. I'm just all over the place. Like I just have to do something. Like I have to have something to do to keep my focus, right? And so
Right.
I enjoy editing pictures, editing videos, stuff like that. It's not something I do
You got
all
plenty
the
to do
time.
from this thing.
Well, yeah,
That'll
but
keep you busy.
like it's that ADHD that like I can't focus on anything until I get sucked into editing a video, and I'll do it for 8 hours straight.
Mhm.
And
Seen
so like yeah, so like doing that, like computer, like spreadsheets, like nerd out on spreadsheets. Like I'm not some Excel guru, but I like that. I like the like inputting shit into ERS.
Is a
like,
spreadsheet like where you take the book page and lay it apart?
yeah, same
Okay,
thing.
cool, yeah.
So like Collins will tell you like when we first started actually putting everything into ERS, and everyone was like, "Oh man, this is gonna suck," and I was like, "Let me do it. Just tell me what it is.
I
I'll
love
put it in."
it.
Like just getting zoned out in the computer, I love it. And like the thing that keeps me on track at work is just writing everything down. Like I have to write everything on the board of what we're gonna do during the day, because if I don't, I'm gonna forget about it. Right? So
What is your? I'm just kidding to y'all. What's your peeve? Like your pet peeve you bring home from work that like you walk in the door is like like do y'all have something like that?
like when you get home, is something that bothers you?
Yes, mine is dishes in the sink. I cannot stand dishes in the sink. I'd rather break every plate in there than wash them. Like that's how much I hate dishes in the sink. But
I don't know that I have like a pet peeve, because my wife, like every episode of this so far, like the guests or us have ended up like harping on our wives like they're the most incredible thing, which they are.
Yeah, I mean they were
Because
born
it
to a
all
family,
comes-
but they chose us. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it all comes back to them. Like they keep us grounded, right? Like that's my ground. But my wife, She's a head softball coach, and so during softball season, she's up at whatever 4:30 in the morning, and doesn't get home until 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes, and then gets up and does it again the next day for a week,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so, especially during softball season, I get home and it's not that I want to be upset with her, and I'm not. I tell myself I'm like, regardless of what I come into at home, she's had Sarah for 2 days,
Yep.
or she's been at work for 2 days, or whatever, and she's been dealing with her own stuff. So I
Mhm.
try consciously. Like I guess I probably used to not be so good at it, but more recently I've been trying to work on like I don't. It's not that I don't have the right, but I'm not in a place to tell her, be like, why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
Type of thing, right?
So really, I only have one. My wife is spectacular. Usually by the time I get home, the house is cleaned up. The kids are gonna make a mess, so I understand that.
Yeah.
The dogs are wild, so there's gonna be a little bit of mud
Oh yeah, I
everywhere.
got me a Toby, so I understand.
But the one pet peeve I have is she parks in the driveway, and
Ooh.
In the middle.
and it's like way too close.
I
and
take
so
it back. I do have a pet peeve.
Oh, dude, my wife, like,
dude, it's
she
the
has a
only
spot-
one.
She has a spot close to the door. Like when she's gone,
Yep.
Uh-huh.
like I'm like, "Ooh, I'm taking that." And she's like, "You're in my spot," and I was like, "Baby, I don't see your name there. Hang up an employee of the month sticker or something. You
Dude,
can park there."
what? And
Yeah.
so that's the only one. Like she just parks terrible, which is another reason we've been worried about getting an Expedition, because right now we're in a Jeep Cherokee.
Oh yeah, that's gonna
Oh,
be
dude,
worse.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My wife drives that
Mhm.
thing like it's a sports car. Just whip, whip.
But I've also been teaching her how to back in, so that's going to help.
Yeah.
Speaking of cars, the other day, I guess a couple weeks ago, it was
Mhm.
real windy whenever that wind came through. And a couple weeks later, we're like driving somewhere, and she goes, I'm driving a car, and she goes, "Oh yeah, the other day when it was really windy, I like opened my door and the wind took it." And she's like kind of laughing about it. She was like, "The wind took it," and it like just swung the door way open really hard. And she was like, "You know how the door's supposed to stop at certain parts? It doesn't do that anymore." And I was like, "That's not funny."
Yeah, like sometimes it's a good, sometimes it's a sheet. And
I was
today
like,
it's a sheet.
I understand it's not like you didn't do it on purpose, like it was not your fault, but like
Mhm.
that's not funny.
Yeah. So one more question for y'all. What are you doing or can you do to be a better husband, a better father, and a better person?
So for me,
Made you deep.
Yeah.
real deep. So for me, I can already go ahead and tell you, one, more intentional time with my wife and kids. I get sucked into a lot, right? Like, so work stuff, home stuff, my dad's stuff. Like, I get sucked into a ton. And so for me, I know I need to drop some of that stuff by the wayside or schedule time out to just be like, hey, this is phones down, TV off. This is me and you, intentional time. Or the same thing goes for my kids. Like, hey, phones down, TV's off. This is me and you, intentional time with Olivia and Sutton. That's a big one. And then on top of, I guess, being more, I don't want to say emotional, but being more empathetic, right?
Okay.
So I also have a young child who doesn't know how to form her words or emotions. And so I need to understand, like, hey, she's too stupid. You need to slow yourself down.
Oh, my oldest one, she talks better than I do. I don't know. Her mom been teaching her real well.
But it's like some of the things that like I get so upset about, right? Like could easily just be like, all right,
Yeah.
she's too, you're putting your expectations are up here, you need to lower them, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a thing, right? Like, so as a dad, you're like, my kid is the best and it's gonna
Yeah.
be the best,
Yeah.
right? But like you have to lower your expectations, right? Because she's still developing, still
Yeah.
learning.
Mhm.
And the same thing goes for Sutton. Sutton's 4 months and she's sitting up before everybody else. And I was like, oh, she's going to crawl first. And so
Yeah.
I've been physically getting on the floor like, hey, this is how you crawl. This is how, and that's unrealistic, right? Like she's going to develop when she develops. So those two things coupled together, and I think I could do a lot better and probably work out more, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, life longevity would help them out in the long run.
Man, I'm going to own the fact that, especially recently, I feel like I have not been doing a great job of being present at home. Like, it's just been kind of like everybody goes through those times, right? Those slumps where you're just kind of like not really in a funk, but you're kind of not as present as you could be, right? So something that I've noticed, I feel like as a dad, I don't think I do a bad job as a dad with being present and being patient. So ironically, like as much as my wife does, somehow I'm the one that is more patient with Sarah. I don't understand how, because I'm not a patient person. But somehow with Sarah, I just, whatever it is, I'm patient with her. And my wife is not. She's just like 0 to 100, right?
Yeah.
So I do a pretty good job being patient with her. I don't do a great job of being patient with my wife.
Right.
I'm very quick to, and it's something we've worked on. We're both kind of like that. I mean, it's real easy to, she'll say something and you immediately just assume the worst. Like, oh, you're being an asshole. When I could just take a second and be like, that probably just came out wrong. Right. So I could definitely do much better job of being patient with her, being a little more present when we're home. Right.
Right.
We're both tired. Like I get off work, I'm tired. She gets off work every day and she's tired. It's not like on my third day off, I can't be like, well, we were up all night.
Yeah.
Like I can't use that excuse anymore. She's at work all day, every day of the week until late. She's up early and all that. Right. So I get it. When she gets home and she just wants to veg out on the couch, do whatever, do your thing. So to answer your question, I think I could do a better job of being more present at home. At work, the guys might tell you differently. I don't know, but I think I do a pretty good job of being present. I think I'm pretty into the job. You could always do more, right? We could always train more. Like there's days that like I don't feel like we do enough, or I don't feel like I do enough. But I'm invested in the job. I'm invested in myself and wanting to be good at the skills of doing the job. I enjoy the job, and so I could definitely do a good job being more present at home. I enjoy being at work. Being at work is fun, but like I learned a few years ago, kind of curbing that to where, yes, work is fun. I enjoy my job a lot, but that should not override who I am at home, right?
Yep.
So
I'd say the big things that I'm wanting to work on, and like I know I need to work on, is y'all have said it. We're gonna beat it to death. Being present. Like we're in a job where it's, hey man, we got to fix problems now. We all have part-time jobs. Like I work in a part-time job where it's, hey, like people need answers now. I can't wait. Because I mean that's people's, that's their life that I'm messing with, kind of deal. And not because they're dying, but it's like because they have stuff they want.
Yeah.
Like we're in a society of instant gratification. I'm one of the world's worst about it. Like definitely being more present, being more, I guess, open with my wife and my kids, like as in like, hey man, it's okay to have emotions. I can like show something, and that's where I'm hoping like going to therapy is going to help me a lot and like make me where, I mean, I'm a very happy person, but like it's going to make me feel better, I guess the best way to put it.
Right.
And just making life like a bigger priority, because I'm going to retire from this job. Like I'm eligible in 8 years. Am I going to do it? No, because I'll be 38 and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be 38 and like nobody's going to hire me because I'm 38.
Right.
But like I want to like make life enjoyable so I can have another 20, 25 years in my job.
Yeah.
And make this like worth it. Like that's what I want. And that's one of the goals. Like how I'm trying to better myself at home is to build a good rapport. So when my girls move off and they're married, me and my wife still have something that we built, and it's us, not just our common bond was the kid, and vice versa. When my girls get married, not until they're like 40, but when they get married, like, hey, I want them to see that, like, man, mom and dad really loved each other. Yeah. Like sometimes mom wanted to take that out back and just, beat him, but, and dad couldn't hear very well. He always go, huh? Even when he was 31, but like, that's what I want. Like, that's the stuff I want to build at home. And if I can translate that, like maybe that'll help me be better at work. So that's, and I know we've kind of swirled around on this, but that's just my thought.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
good, man. Well, thank you guys for making it this long. If you've made it this long, I know it's a long one. Kraymer, thank you so much for coming on. I think we got a lot of good stuff talked about.
Dude, thank y'all for making it to episode 3. Right? Like, I don't know where you posted this, but I got a lot of feedback from you guys, and sincerely, it made my heart swell up. Like I was like so happy because 1, we're reaching people. And 2, we're getting a message out there that it's okay to have mental shit and you can talk to the boys.
Yeah.
So dude, thank you guys for reaching out, giving us feedback. I'm not going to cry up here today, but I will cry about this, and I appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah.
As always, if you have questions for us, stuff you want to see, comments, anything like that, reach out to us. Let us know.
They want it live.
Yeah, well, we're working
we'll
on
be
it.
live
Hopefully
soon.
one of these days soon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, reach out, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the things.
Yep.
We're there. Some of them hit Chris's phone, some of them hit my phone. You don't know who you're gonna get, so
Yeah.
be careful.
But if you're trying to hit a certain phone, not cutting these boys off, my phone number is 817-565-3766. If you're having a problem, you need to talk, you want to call me and tell me I'm an idiot, man, do it. Like, but shoot me a text first so I know. But yeah, like I'm here for you. If you know your department doesn't have that SISM, a SISM team or a peer support team, I'm sure I can find you somebody to get you in contact with, because we always go to the store and people say thank you for your service. Like, one of the best things I ever heard is like telling people, hey, you're worth it. Well, I mean, you're worth it. So like, get your stuff in line and like do that. Like, be here for your guys, be here for your family, and reach out.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
Hasta
thanks
luego.
for sticking out this long, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep.
Au revoir, boys.
Episode 4, Michael Powell. I almost said Michael Lewis, and that's one of my old lieutenants. But Michael Powell will be here with us, and he's going to give us a better look into men's mental health in the faith and being a part of the congregation. So that's going to be real cool. Kraymer, thank you for coming out.
Man, thanks for having me.
Your brother's going to be a doctor, and
Yeah.
he's probably going to be the smartest one in your family.
Shoot,
but you
man.
are a close second, buddy. And we appreciate that about
Brother, I'm stronger than him. That's how it works in the world.
you. But yeah.
All right.
Thanks, fellas.
See you on the next one.